And sometimes they don't do it well, and sometimes they do. I remember seeing a whole program about the cars that they had duplicated, and it's like, that looks just like a BMW, but it's a Chink W or something like that. It's like whatever the fuck they called it, W.
Probably Chink W, yeah.
I think that's
a
Charlie
BMW. Yeah.
That's Japanese. See, the Japanese can make their own fucking cars.
They make great cars. Japanese are on top of the car game.
Absolutely.
Think I'm really considering not going American next time I buy a car, just because I want a Jeep, but that's the same company as Chrysler, and I do not want to give them any more money because
I got you then. Look, here's
Fiat.
the. I don't even
They
like
own
Jeeps.
Chrysler.
I don't even like Jeeps, but I saw this Jeep on Reddit the other day, and it looked really badass. It had a bed, it had a truck bed on it, and it had an LS, I think LS6 conversion. LS6 is an engine I'm not really familiar with, but they put LS1s and several Corvette GM motors, the big ones in there, the 6 liters or 6.4, something like that, in one of these Jeeps. And so I started looking them up, and they're really fucking cool. It's an expensive vehicle, right? Because you're having someone custom convert this thing to a Corvette engine.
What kind of Jeep is it that they're making? Like, is it a Wrangler? Is it like one of the
bigger body? Yeah, it was the bigger body Jeep, and it had a bed on the back that looked like a Hardy bed. I can't remember the name of the customization shop, but I thought that was really cool. But again, I bet when you're done, when all is said and done, you're looking at like at least a $50,000 Jeep, maybe a $60,000, $70,000 one. And it's like, why don't you just go get a new Chevrolet?
Well, that would be a terrible decision.
To get fixed.
And there are people out there who can fix it. Like that's an issue. Like, I don't know. I used to have this buggy I mentioned earlier in the show. Jeep motor, like fucking Chevy tranny, Toyota axles, and lawnmower and cement truck parts on it, right? You couldn't take it to the dealer to get fixed. If the thing just randomly stalls and you don't know why, which happened, then like no one wants to work on it. It's not a car that anyone's had training on. Like it's hard to find someone who'll even accept it. And if you're stumped, good luck. I feel like with that conversion mix match of Jeep and Chevy, you'd be in a similar spot. You think the Chevy dealer wants to work on that Jeepy thing?
Oh, you take it back to the people who made it. I'm sure, 'cause, like they do that conversion there. Like, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I mean, once it's like a super Jeep, really. It can't really be compared to anything else. But I just thought it was cool. It was a cool green color. It's super powered. I don't know how many horsepower that would be. Probably 500, 600 horsepower.
I've been looking.
I looked
at
into
cars
it like
lately.
I looked into like a really cursory thing about, how some people will say like, I only buy American with cars. Like, I always wondered how that was, like how it actually helped Americans. Lots of other foreign car companies are manufactured here in the U.S., and so those are American jobs that are creating like the Toyota, Avalon's bumper or whatever. And then sometimes Fords are made overseas, and then the parts are shipped here. Like, it does it really make that big a difference? I don't know enough. But
I think my Camaro is mostly Canadian.
This is something I really don't understand, right? So people who say buy American would argue that the profits come back to America. And like so my truck, for example, was made in California, right? It's a Toyota. And sure, like the jobs were in America, but the profits got shipped back to Japan. So there's still this like removing of money from America to some other country. On the other hand, like, I don't know. Who are you for? Are you for the guys who build the truck, or are you for the guys who like invested in the company? Because it seems like American jobs are the big thing, right? Not the profit. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is because it's all so mixed up. So
just buy whatever you want to buy.
Yeah, and it turns out that it seems like Germany and Japan really make cars way better than we do at this point in time. Isn't that because like in the like post World War II we levied so many like trade restrictions on importing cars and car parts from other countries and making people prefer American-made cars, that American-made cars were able, that whole industry was able to stagnate and not keep up with the world. And so then when they did introduce cars from Japan, from Germany, American cars just looked kind of shitty in comparison. Like, that's a very brief, my understanding of it.
It's not far from my understanding either. And by the way, that is the Trump policy that he's pitching when he says, oh, we'll just levy the fuck out of these air conditioners so they can't be built in Mexico. That's the risk you run, that, you know, all of a sudden American air conditioners, which have enjoyed this privileged position of like tariffs on imports, start to suck.
His trade talk makes no sense when he'll say stuff like, oh, we have a, $50 billion deficit with China. And it's like, yeah, because we purchase more goods from them than they purchase from us. Like, we want those goods. We're not partnering with them out of pity. Like, oh, poor China, really trying to sell all these shitty toys. Like, we may as well buy them if no one's going to help them out. Like, no, we want those services and products, which is why we pay them. That's what I don't get about the trade deficit thing. It's like, we have a trade deficit with Mexico. Yeah, they rely on that business from us, but we're not giving it out of benevolence. We're giving it because we want that business from Mexico.
I think he's pointing out the disparity. He's saying, hey, they should be getting $30 billion worth of Fords from us, but they're not. I think that he's saying that why is it so unattractive for them to buy our goods, and why is it so attractive for us to buy theirs? Let's fix that problem.
Because restriction has made manufacturing very difficult and costly in the United States, and so it's cheaper to ship it to another country. And then, of course, people in the U.S. in a free economy are going to purchase goods that are cheaper and of equal quality from different countries.
I don't think it's as simple as restriction. I mean, I think labor costs are at least as big a deal as like EPA.
But restrictions affect the labor costs.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, but labor cost affects labor costs too.
In China, I feel like they can stick a bunch of kids in there, and if the threshing machine takes their fingers off, there's not going to be a class action lawsuit with all these like 8-fingered Chinese kids coming forward. That ain't going to happen. But they're not going to destroy your thresher company. You don't have that risk, and you don't have the EPA coming in, the Chinese EPA, whatever they are.
Right.
They don't exist.
If you want to, if you want to make batteries in your manufacturing plant in China, you can just dump the nickel in the river, right? Yet here, you got to find some clever way to keep everything clean. But
some kind of joke there, like the Chinese don't have a word for environment or something.
The big issue I have with trade is that the kinds of things that Americans make well, China just steals, right? Which is usually some sort of intellectual property type thing.
Yeah.
When you make software, they get one copy, and then they copy the fuck out of it, and they sell it like for free on street corners. You think if there's a Chinese movie theater, do you think they're really paying proper royalties based on the number of showings that are happening?
Yeah, of course not.
No.
Yeah.
No, hang on. I think with an industry like their movie industry, like I don't think they have a choice, because it seems that we get, like, the American movie studio has to get their cut one way or another. I think that's an automated thing, because we see hundreds of millions, in Chinese like movie revenue go into this film or that film. I don't think they can fuck us over on that as far as like eyes in a theater. But of course, there's bootlegs all over the streets. Everything is a bootleg in China.
I have friends from Cisco, right, the Indian guys, and they say that in America, like, if all the software on your computer is paid for, there's a sense of pride. Like, yeah, nothing on this computer is stolen. I bought that, right? And I remember, like, it came from you. You bought Sony Vegas, right? You bought it, I bought it, White Boy bought it, and we were all like, you know what? I didn't pirate my shit. I bought this. And but my Indian friends would look at you like you were stupid, like you made a bad financial decision. You might as well have taken that money, made a small fire, and showed everyone, look at me. Like it was a different culture. There's no pride in owning it.
That guy doesn't wipe his ass, so I don't really care what he has to say.
I think they wipe their asses.
So they use their hand.
Oh, yeah.
And that might have changed, culturally, but that's a difference. And in China, I think the same thing exists. They're just, stealing shit with no shame. Not that.
Yes, I can see how IP would definitely be unfair, because we're definitely, or to my knowledge, no companies in the U.S. are ripping off, state-of-the-art Chinese, intellectual property and then, proliferating it over here without paying any dues. But it does seem to be the trend. That could just be because we're American, though, and they kind of need to demonize China a little bit. And so they will tell it. I don't know.
It's hard.
But the IP is a very convincing argument. I didn't think about it. I was just thinking like tangible goods. But
right. I just feel like America makes a lot of IP.
But that's what we make.
Right.
We make intellectual property. They make cars and fucking aluminum cans and
iPhones.
This and like everything is surround. I bet everything in this room, as I look around, like my AR-15, I know that was made here, but like all these plastic shelves, these plastic containers, like. All this shit is from China. It was probably cheaper to send that weight set over there from China to here with some sort of melted down like battleship steel than it would be to like make steel here and buy it. I know that there's some restrictions on. It seems like something about that American steel is inferior to steel that's made elsewhere because we can't put a certain additive into it because of the EPA. I was reading about that the other day. Like that if you want top level steel for your construction project, it's not coming from the United States because we can't use, I don't know, the chrome. It's not chromium, but let's just say it's chromium. I know they use chromium to make stainless steel. That's how they do it. But like, we can't make steel to the as well as we could be making it, but they can over there. I was also reading back when scrap metal was bringing a huge amount of money a while back. I didn't know why. I don't know. Maybe like the average person isn't aware of scrap metal prices, but I was, because I've always got these junk cars that we've blown up, and I'll wait until I got 3 or 4 of them, and then I'll scrap them all at once. And steel was bringing like $10 for every 100 pounds, which is high. And I was like, I couldn't understand why. And then the market just completely crashed a few years ago, and now it's like a couple of bucks for every 100 pounds. And I was asking a scrap guy the other day why that was, and he said it was literally because when China was getting ready for the Olympics back this last time around, they were buying all of the steel that there was. They were buying steel from all over the fucking planet. They were piling those ships full of it, sending it to China, and they were building infrastructure.